you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Ritchie, thanks very much for joining us today. You have an extraordinary story, and I wanted to ask you about this. I want to make sure I understand some of the facts. In Pennsylvania, I believe the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour.
Correct.
And I think the minimum tip wage is $2.83 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And your story, if I've got it right, is that while working in an industry where the minimum wage was $2.83 an hour, you managed to support yourself, put yourself through cosmetology school, and then launch your own small business. How's that even possible on $2.83 an hour?
What a lot of people don't understand is though the minimum wage is set at $2.83 an hour, we are covered by the tip credits. And what a lot of people don't understand is what the tip credit actually is. So say like in my case, I make $3 an hour at the brewery. If I go to the brewery and say it was a fluke day, nobody comes in, I don't make any tips, then it's up to Bob as the restaurant owner to make the difference in my paycheck hourly to ensure that I make at least minimum wage.
And in fact, when business is pretty good, you can make much more than minimum wage, right?
Much more, yes.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
And you often did.
Mm-hmm.
And you, right. Let me ask you this. Now you have your own small business. What do you think would be more valuable for your employees, a $15 minimum wage or to be able to fully open and accommodate safely the customers that you can accommodate?
We definitely need to reopen. This isn't doing anything good for the economy. As I said, whenever I gave my testimony, the 50% capacity just doesn't make sense, especially because in a hair salon, I have to be so incredibly sanitized and sterilized anyway. And the distance between our stations is much more than 6 feet. So I believe we can absolutely safely accommodate 100% capacity.
And you and your customers have every incentive to be careful, to take the proper precautions.
Mm-hmm.
What is that what you do now when you're with respect to the customers you are able to serve?
Yes, absolutely. And we actually at the salon, we do have masks to provide to customers that show up without their own. And we have hand sanitizer everywhere. We sanitize our stations and our tools after every client, whenever we're finished with them before anybody else even enters.
Well, congratulations on an amazing and terrific story. Mr. Griffith, we see the CBO estimate that if the minimum wage goes up to 15, it could destroy 1.4 million jobs, maybe considerably more than that. It seems pretty clear that what this amounts to is the government picking winners and losers. Some people would get raises, but a lot of people would lose their job. Thomas Sowell wisely observed that the government can set any minimum wage it wants, but there's always a minimum wage of zero. So let me ask you this. If we double the minimum wage, why couldn't businesses just raise their prices to cover the added costs so that they wouldn't have to lay anyone off?
That's a good question. And if you look at the sectors in which the minimum wage is most prevalent, a lot of those are sectors with very low profit margins. So think of a restaurant, for instance, that has a 5% profit margin and labor costs that eat up half of their expenses. Well, if you double or triple, and let's just go with doubling the minimum wage to 15, well, suddenly their entire profit margin is eaten away. They become either insolvent or they have to raise the prices to accommodate that. Well, in many of these restaurants, they would have to raise prices on their standard fast food package by close to 40%. And in those instances, many individuals will simply choose no longer to frequent the restaurant. They'll go somewhere else, or that restaurant will be forced to prematurely automate. Automation can be a positive thing, but in this case, this would be government nudging these companies to automate early. And many of these individuals that work there, they don't work in those jobs for long. They get the on-the-job training, they move on. I worked at a minimum wage job for several years through college, getting that experience. You move on after you get it. But when you do this, when you double this, it just denies people that opportunity to even get that first shot at getting that on-the-job training.
And then just very quickly, you indicated in your testimony that all of this government funding and grants and loans is having the effect of crowding out private capital and misallocating resources. Explain to us what's the net effect of that? So what's the problem with the government being a substitute for the private allocation of capital?
Sure. Well, when the government becomes a substitute for that private allocation, it means that businesses that otherwise would have been able to obtain capital and produce things more efficiently, it means they won't have access to that. Usually you have businesses bidding with each other by paying higher interest rates for a limited amount of capital. And those businesses that can produce the most, they're able to go ahead and obtain that loan or obtain that investment. In this instance, you end up having the government allocating capital to a business based on other factors beyond creditworthiness or beyond whether or not that company is likely to be able to produce. And they're able to curry political favor, but that doesn't result in net economic growth. And we've seen SSCI riddled with this over the years. And we have many, many studies now that are available to look at how those loans have gone to businesses that actually didn't produce the economic output that we hoped for.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.